Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down every single matchup from week number 1 for the running backs. We're going to go through Thursday Night Football, all through the games on Sunday, and then close out today's video with the Monday Night Football matchup. And I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the running backs in every single matchup. Now, if you guys are subscribed to the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel, you will have already seen this video, but for my audience, we're back. It's Notorious Fantasy by Stokastic now, so make sure you're subscribed if you're new. You're going to really enjoy this video, and from now on, all of the start or sit videos that you guys may have been used to from the last couple of years on my channel will be back this season, and then I'll be getting into the rankings for the week as the week goes on. So I hope you guys do appreciate this video. I hope you do end up enjoying this video. And if you are new, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It helps me out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, follow me at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into the week number 1 running back start or sit decisions. We begin with the Buffalo Bills at the LA Rams for Thursday Night Football. In the start column, we have 2 running backs for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to be starting Devin Singletary in this matchup. Now, towards the end of last season, Devin Singletary basically caught on fire like he was in NBA Jam and was very productive for the end of the season. Going up against the LA Rams and the run defense is going to be a tough task for this Buffalo Bills offense, but at the end of the day, I believe that this game will be very high scoring. Thus, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Devin Singletary found the end zone in this game. I don't think that he's a top 12 running back on the week, so I wouldn't advocate him in the must-start category, but I do think he's definitely start-worthy. For the LA Rams, we're going to go with Cam Akers. Now, Cam Akers is definitely a little bit risky this week because I feel like in week 1, we're really going to know if Sean McVay was bullshitting us all offseason or if he was telling the truth, because there was a lot of talk about Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson being the 1A and 1B in this offense, basically meaning that the team believes that they have 2 starting running backs, and they are going to be using both of them at a pretty high rate, and none of them are going to end up being the workhorse running back on this team. Now, if you remember, after he ended up getting hurt, he came back for the playoffs, and he was basically a workhorse running back. Cam Akers was being the guy seeing a majority amount of snaps. So we will see in this game if this is going to be a Cam Akers-led backfield or if this is going to be a 1-2 punch type of deal with Akers and Darrell Henderson in week number 1. Since you drafted Cam Akers so highly, it's pretty likely that you're going to have to play him, and I'll believe in him this week up against the Buffalo Bills. But again, this is far from a lock for him to have a humongous game. For the sits, we're going to sit down Darrell Henderson because, again, while I do think there is a chance that they do use him pretty heavily in this offense, I would rather just bench him this game, and then maybe in week number 2, if we see that he has high usage, then we go ahead and roll Darrell Henderson out in week number 2. James Cook is a guy that I haven't really drafted all that much in the offseason. I wasn't really excited about him. I know he does have a role on this team on third down, right? He's the pass catching back on this team, but how fruitful is that going to be? We shall see at the start of the season, but for right now, I'm going to be sitting down James Cook. Next up, we move to the first matchup on Sunday of the New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. For the start category, pretty obvious that you're going to go with Alvin Kamara. You drafted him early on in your fantasy football drafts. A couple of months ago, he was going around the 3rd or the 4th round, and then everyone started to catch wind on the fact that it was very unlikely that he would be suspended, and that when this guy is playing on the football field, he could easily be the number 1 running back in fantasy football. Going up against the Atlanta Falcons, this game could be a slaughter. Alvin Kamara could dance in the end zone multiple times. If you remember that game up against the Vikings on Christmas, maybe Alvin Kamara could put up that type of a game against the Falcons. Now, I highly doubt that because in that game, Kamara scored like 45 fucking fantasy points, but here up against the Falcons, Alvin Kamara is definitely a must-start player, and I expect him to be explosive up against that Falcons defense. Cordero Patterson will also be a start for me. I'm very interested to see how this offense looks to utilize Cordero Patterson in week number 1. Are we going to be seeing Tyler Algier work as the number 1 running back on the team, and Cordero Patterson's kind of just running out wide, and then they design some plays to hand the ball off to Cordero Patterson? Or is this going to be Cordero Patterson is the running back 1 seeing all the touches, and then he also goes out wide as well, and then Algier kind of mixes in? I'm interested to see that, but I think in week number 1, the Saints are probably going to be absolutely torching them. Thus, the Falcons have to throw a lot late in games, and while that isn't great for a lot of running backs for Cordero Patterson, who is an excellent pass catcher. I expect him to have a solid game up against the Saints. I will be sitting down Mr. Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram really doesn't have all that much use when Alvin Kamara's there. Ingram's definitely an above average handcuff, but he's not a guy you want to be playing when Kamara is healthy. So we're going to go ahead and sit down Mark Ingram. And then Tyler Algier, maybe it does appear that he gets more touches like I was talking about a little bit earlier. And maybe Tyler Algier becomes a start-worthy player up against worse defenses. But here, up against the Saints in week number 1, I would look to sit him down. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns at the Carolina Panthers, the Baker Mayfield revenge game narrative. For the Browns here, we're going to be starting both 9-inch Nicholas Chubb as well as Kareem Hunt. I am pretty interested in this game as well to see the utilization of Kareem Hunt, because this is going to be an offense that probably isn't all that sexy without Deshaun Watson playing quarterback. With Jacoby Brissett, things might look very, very bad. And Jacoby Brissett isn't necessarily a quarterback, at least in my mind, that I think of as some type of dump-off machine where he's going to throw the ball to Kareem Hunt a lot. When Baker Mayfield was the quarterback of the Browns, he would check the ball down to Kareem Hunt. So I'm interested to see how Jacoby Brissett does in this scenario. The Panthers defense isn't all that amazing, but neither is Jacoby Brissett. So I'm kind of looking to see what happens here before I really pump up Kareem Hunt. I would start a lot of other running backs over Hunt, but I do think he's start worthy up against the Panthers. And even if the Browns are down, Nick Chubb is just so good that they're just going to run the ball a million times with him in the game regardless. I assume that's going to be the game plan with Jacoby under center. So I like Nick Chubb up against the Panthers. For the Panthers, it's kind of a no fucking brainer, right? You draft Christian McCaffrey, number 2 overall. Most likely you are going to play him. This guy has game-breaking potential in fantasy football. He's one of the few running backs that can genuinely put up 40 points in a game, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, the Browns defense is pretty solid up against the run, but he is Christian McCaffrey, and good running backs are good even against good run defenses. So I expect McCaffrey to go balls to the wall here up against the Cleveland Browns. For the other Carolina Panthers running back, they have a couple of running backs on that team. Chuba Hubbard is the guy that I will name in this video. I don't think he's start worthy at all when McCaffrey is healthy. They clearly just want to use a workhorse running back. Christian McCaffrey comes out for like 3 plays a fucking game on offense. So I like McCaffrey a lot in this matchup, but I'm sitting down Mr. Chuba Hubbard. Next up, we move to the San Francisco 49ers at the Bears, the Chicago Bears. For the 49ers, I'm going to fire up Elijah Mitchell. Now, I have been someone all draft season for the last couple of months who has not really talked too positively about Elijah Mitchell. And it's not because I think Elijah Mitchell is a bad player, but it's because Kyle Shanahan scares me. Kyle Shanahan will take some random fan in the crowd and play him as the running back. He doesn't give a shit who the running back is on the team. And if Elijah Mitchell falters slightly, it wouldn't surprise me if Jeff Wilson or Tyrion Davis-Price take the reins and become the lead back on the team. So that makes Elijah Mitchell a very scary player. Now, they're going up against the Bears, and this is not the Bears defense of the past. That would pretty much scare me away from playing Elijah Mitchell. That's not that Bears defense. So this week, week 1, I'm assuming Elijah Mitchell's the starter. Everything I've read has told me Elijah Mitchell is the starter, and he could have a fantastic showing up against the Bears. For the other 49ers running backs, Jeff Wilson as well as the other players will be a sit for me, because the 49ers do want to use one main running back. The biggest question is, though, which running back will that be right now? I think it will be Elijah Mitchell. For the Bears, David Montgomery going up against the 49ers run defense is very bad. Mix the matchup with the fact that there has been some negativity coming towards David Montgomery. A lot of reports I've seen are kind of pro Khalil Herbert. Now, I don't think Khalil Herbert is going to start over David Montgomery as the lead back on the team, but could Khalil Herbert carve out a nice enough role in this offense? Maybe, and that could derail David Montgomery. So for week 1 up against the Niners, I would definitely look to sit down David Montgomery. Next up, we move to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. And in this one, we'll keep it short like Kyler Murray. I'm not here trying to give some crazy breakdown as to why you want to start Najee Harris and Joe Mixon. In a lot of drafts, both of these players are first-round picks, and if they weren't first-round picks, they were early second-round picks. Najee Harris has had a lot of negativity kind of pushed towards him recently because of the fact that maybe the Steelers' offense isn't going to be all that great. Maybe the reason why Harris was so good last year on paper was because that game where he had 1 million targets. I believe he had 19 targets in one game. People will talk about that, and they'll push Najee Harris down. Now, Najee Harris's offensive line is better, and I'd argue that the quarterback situation, even with Kiss and Titties Mitchell Trubisky starting as the quarterback, Najee Harris is in a better scenario than with Big Ben Roethlisberger, so I believe in Najee Harris. This isn't the best matchup up against the Bengals, but it's not like the Bengals can just lock up the run completely. So I like Najee Harris, and he also has a lot of upside to catch some passes. For Joe Mixon here up against the Steelers defense, again, this isn't the most positive matchup, but Joe Mixon is the clear workhorse running back on this team. They may mix in Samaje Perine or Captain America Chris Evans, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, Joe Mixon will be the running back in the game. And with the Bengals' upgraded offensive line, which I really like, I think it's going to mean a ton for Joe Burrow, the receivers, and especially Joe Mixon. I like him in week number 1, and I'm going to sit down the handcuff running backs here. Benny Snell is right now technically the number 2 on the depth chart, but they do have Jaylen Warren as well, who I think could potentially take over Benny Snell's role as the number 2. But the Steelers, under Mike Tomlin, really like to utilize just one workhorse running back. So Najee Harris is that guy. And then Samaje Perine as well as Chris Evans would be sits for me here up against the Steelers. Next up, we've moved to the Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly, at the Detroit Lions. Now, if you are in a big pickle, you are in an awful scenario, then you can roll out Miles Sanders. But I have about zero confidence in Miles Sanders. I have drafted him in one of my fantasy football drafts because he fell so far that I felt like he was a value. But I am very unsure of if Miles Sanders can actually lock down the number 1 role on this team. They have Kenneth Gainwell, they have Boston Scott, and this team has looked to use other running backs. And Miles Sanders has fallen off the edge of the fucking earth the last couple of years in terms of his pass catching ability. He just hasn't caught as many passes as he did in his rookie year. And while the Lions defense isn't the fucking 85 Bears, I still worry about the usage of Sanders and Gainwell. If you're in a pickle, I definitely lean Sanders over Gainwell, but right now, I'd probably advise you to sit them both. For the Lions, you're obviously going to start DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift has looked good in preseason action when he played. We all know how good DeAndre Swift could be. I think this Detroit Lions offense as a whole is going to take a big step up, a big leap up in 2022 under Dan Campbell. So I like DeAndre Swift a ton. Jamal with 2A's Williams will be a sit for me. If you're in a super deep league, Jamal Williams is kind of just one of those guys you throw out there. He gets you like 8 or 9 points, and things could have been significantly worse, but there's a lot better options, especially in week 1 where there really aren't any injuries yet. Just leave Jamal Williams on the bench. Next up, we move to the Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans, and this is kind of another one of those no-brainer matchups at the running back position. The Colts defense is pretty solid, but Dameon Pierce has gotten so much hype. So many fantasy analysts, including myself, have gotten down on their knees and given this guy the verbal gawk gawk 9,000. So I expect Dameon Pierce to be in position to be the clear lead back on this team, and I think even if they are down in this game, that Dameon Pierce will be given pass-catching opportunities. So up against the Colts, I think Dameon Pierce is definitely a start. Jonathan Taylor is obviously a start, right? You drafted him either at the first pick or the second pick, and you're pumped to have Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was the number 1 running back last year. No brainer to fire him up here up against a not so hot, a no bueno Houston Texans defense. I will sit down Nyheim Hines in this game. I did like Nyheim Hines as a late round target, so I do think he could have some usage in your lineup this season. The question here is, did Frank Reich completely fucking lie directly to our faces or not? Because earlier on in the offseason, Frank Reich was like, if I was playing fantasy football, you ought to know who I would draft. Nyheim Hines. That Nyheim Hines is going to be seeing work with Jonathan Taylor on the field and with Jonathan Taylor off of the field. We will see in week 1 what that is going to be and if that is going to be the case. Because going forward, if you're in a deeper league, Nyheim Hines could definitely be a startable running back number 2. Will that actually be the case? We shall see. That's why week 1 is always so interesting. But I will tell you guys that we're not going to overreact to what happens in week 1, because one of these running backs that I tell you guys to sit is probably going to go fucking nuclear. That's what always seems to happen. So for the Texans, we're definitely going to be sitting down Rex Burkhead. Rex Burkhead is just a running back that has always been like the number 3 running back on a team. He has one game where he looks good, and then besides that, he doesn't really do anything. And I really am so strong with my take on Dameon Pierce that I ain't starting Mr. Sexy Rexy Burkhead. Next up, we move to the New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. Now, if I know anything about the Dolphins defense, as a Dolphins fan, for years, we have had just such a great secondary, but our front on defense gets pounded out. They get absolutely torched by any fucking running back. You literally could sub me in the game, and I'm convinced I could run for 25 yards on the Dolphins defense. Now, obviously, 25 yards isn't impressive if you're an NFL running back, but I'm Nick, who makes fantasy football videos, so maybe I could run for 25 yards on our defense. The defense sucks absolute ass at protecting the run, so I like Damian Harris and Stevenson in this game. I am in the belief, the standpoint of this team is going to use both Harris and Stevenson. I'm thinking it might be possible. Drive 1 against the Dolphins, you see Harris in for all 3 downs. Drive number 2, they rotate in Stevenson, and Stevenson's the guy. Then the next drive, Harris, and so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying? Maybe that's not going to be the case, and maybe Stevenson will be a big swing and a miss, because we have seen a late push favoriting Damian Harris out of the beat reporters. Now, are the beat reporters always correct? Of course not. But when you're reading the tea leaves here, I think Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are start-worthy against the Dolphins, but I wouldn't rank them as top 12 backs. They're definitely closer to running back 24 than to running back number 12. For the Dolphins, I love Chase Edmonds in this spot up against the Patriots defense. Chase Edmonds is the number 1 running back on the team. I talked about in the waiver wire video that I released yesterday that I like Raheem Mostert as a pickup because I want to see what Raheem Mostert does in this game. I want to see if Mike McDaniel is going to be given Raheem Mostert these opportunities to catch passes and hand him the ball where he can just, since he's so fucking fast, just bust off like a 90-yard run. Maybe we'll see that, or maybe we see them heavily feature Edmonds. My best guess is that they're using both of them, but I think Edmonds is in the better situation because he will be in first, and he will be a running back that can catch a lot of passes, and it seems like the Dolphins want to utilize him in that way from the preseason action I saw out of Chase Edmonds. Next up, we move to the Baltimore Ravens at the Jumbo Jets. This game, literally, I am so excited for football on Sunday. I'm so pumped up, but this game is going to be atrocious. You're going to see it if you're watching Red Zone all the time because Lamar Jackson is going to absolutely butt-fuck the Jumbo Jets defense without using spit or lube. This is going to be an incredibly easy matchup for the Ravens. Now, J.K. Dobbins is hobbled. He might go out there with a fucking peg leg because he has a limp, and I think J.K. Dobbins, even with a peg leg like a pirate, could roll out there. They can even wear an eye patch, have one fucking eye, and he's going to destroy the Jets defense. Now, I don't expect Dobbins to be a top 12 running back because I think he's limping. I believe that. J.K. Dobbins on Twitter says I'm not limping, so we will see. Don't lock this in as a lock that you need to play J.K. Dobbins this week, because as we get closer to Sunday, maybe Dobbins doesn't play. Maybe the team doesn't believe Dobbins is good. If that's the case, then I'm back in on Mike Davis, baby, and we're going to roll out Mike Davis week 1 up against the Jumbo Jets. So if you're watching this maybe Friday, Saturday, maybe there's more news on this, but as of right now, as I'm recording this, I would roll with Dobbins even though he's injured. Now, there's always that talk about start your studs, start the guys you drafted early. Breece Hall against the Ravens defense seems like probably a stupid play. Honestly, whatever defense they drew their week 1 matchup up against, I would have told you to sit Breece Hall because I want to see what happens. Is Breece Hall this featured running back, or is Michael Carter going to come in and fuck this guy's day up? I think it's possible. I think that is almost a guarantee for week 1. Now, by week 8, 10, can Breece Hall break free, be soaring, be flying like he's Troy Bolton, and be the clear lead running back on this Jets team? Definitely. He definitely can. But will it be week 1? Probably not. So I understand you're going to be in a pickle. Some people are in pickles, right? They draft Breece Hall super early. You got to play him. I understand it. But just don't expect him to go crazy in week number 1. I'm also going to be sitting down Michael Carter because, again, I kind of want to feel this situation out before I throw them into my fantasy football lineup. Before we move on into the next game, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our Friendstar sponsor of today's video, Underdog Fantasy. They've been on the screen this whole entire video. If you use promo code Stokastic, you will receive a $100 first match deposit bonus. So if you deposit $100, you receive an additional $100, as well as getting our best ball draft kit for 100% free. Now, I know most of you guys watching this video, or most of you gals watching this video, have already done your fantasy football drafts, but why not hop into some additional best ball drafts? Best ball is super easy. You don't have to worry about waivers. You don't have to worry about trades. You don't have to worry about even setting your lineup, because at the end of the week, Underdog Fantasy will automatically put in your best lineup possible. So all you got to do is draft your team right now, and then you can forget about it all the way until January when you could make some fat stacks, or you could watch it every single week. That works too. So make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy. I do a ton of best ball drafts on there, and their Best Ball Mania 3 contest, their biggest contest, has a $2 million to first place, and it is a $10 million prize pool. Make sure you guys do go ahead and check that out. Link in the video description. So back on into the video, we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Washington Commanders. The game everyone was waiting for me to talk about, right? Everyone is so excited for the Jaguars at the Washington Commanders. Travis Etienne is my only start-worthy running back in this game. I'm interested to see how healthy is James Robinson. Because I've seen reports that, oh, James Robinson's looking spry. He's looking great. Is that true? Or are we getting fucking bamboozled here? Either way, I'm not going to play him. Maybe next week, though, we could play James Robinson. But right now, I'm assuming Travis Etienne is in the number one running back role on this team. The Washington Commanders defense isn't that great, so I think Etienne could have a hell of a game up against the Commanders. For the Commanders, J.D. McKissic, Antonio Gibson, they will be sits for me. Now, with Brian Robinson out for the foreseeable future, maybe we actually see Antonio Gibson just hang on to this running back one role on this team, and maybe Antonio Gibson just backhands me like fucking Will Smith did to Chris Rock during the Oscars. Maybe that happens. Or maybe Antonio Gibson just isn't good like I thought, and we see a lot of McKissic, and then when Brian Robinson comes back, potentially Robinson becomes the guy. We will see. But in week 1, I don't want to see that in my lineup, because Gibson might give me like 4 points. He could give me 18 points if they play well against the Jaguars, but I'd rather just see it on my bench instead of rolling him out in week number 1. Next up, we move to the New York Football Giants at the Les Titans, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans' run defense is tough. I expect this to be a hard-fought matchup for Saquon Barkley, but again, you drafted him in the second round. The first round in some leagues, if you're a little crazy, a little spicy. So you better believe that this guy's good enough to play good up against a tough run defense. That's why you fucking drafted him so highly, because he's that good. I am under the belief that Saquon is back. Saquon is back like when Cam Newton ran to the end zone, he yelled, "I'm back," but he wasn't actually back. Cam Newton was not back. He was far from back. But Saquon Barkley is back. And up against the Tennessee Titans, I'm firing him up. I don't expect the top 12 week, but I expect him to be usable. Derrick Henry against the Giants front. This dude is going to devour them like Ezekiel Elliott fucking devours cereal in the morning. If you've ever seen that video of him going, just munching the cereal down, I assume that is what Derrick Henry is going to do to the Giants defense. He might be the number one running back at the end of the week without even he'll probably catch like a pass in the game too and just dominate in half PPR. And full PPR, I'm going to be sitting down Matt Breida in this game. Barkley's the number one. Breida will mix in at points in the game, but not really start worthy. And Dontrell Hilliard, I assume, is the backup, but they have other names as well. Hassan Haskins. Come on, we all know what Henry's going to do. He's the guy. Next up, we move to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Arizona Cardinals in what could be a certified shootout. Just an extremely high-scoring game. So I like both running backs in this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I've been a Clyde Edwards-Helaire fan all offseason. Now, if you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the last couple of years, you probably thought that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just a dog shit running back and you should fade him. I get it. But this year, I didn't have to draft him in the first or second round. I got him in like the 8th or 9th round. So I was excited about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I assume he's the number one running back. Now, am I telling you that I'm 100% confident in Clyde Edwards-Helaire? No. But I would fire him up. I have enough confidence in him that I will fire him up against the Cardinals defense, which I think is going to be worse than last year, if I'm being honest. It might be a lot worse than last year. James Conner going up against the Chiefs. James Conner is the lead back. I've been a big fan of James Conner all offseason long as well. Banging the drum for him. I really think that he is going to be seeing so much work in this offense. So I'm sitting down Darrell Williams, Eno Benjamin, and I would sit down Jerick McKinnon and whoever the number 2 running back is on that team. I assume right now it's McKinnon, but you never really know. Maybe it's Isaiah Pacheco. We'll see. Week 1 is going to be very exciting so we can see the role of these players. Next up, we move to the Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I sat down this morning when I was thinking, who do I want to start? Who do I want to sit? And I thought long and hard. And I sat there thinking, what do I do with Josh Jacobs? Because I think Josh Jacobs might be in a glorified committee, and Josh Jacobs might be awful against the Chargers. But then I also started thinking, Josh Jacobs catches passes now. Josh Jacobs going up against the Chargers, this should be a high-scoring game. Josh Jacobs could easily leap into the end zone in this game. Now, the Chargers' defense is tough. The Chargers, in my opinion, have one of the best defenses in all of the National Football League. But I still think this game is going to be so high-scoring that Jacobs can break through and score. I think if Jacobs does not score a touchdown in this game, it was going to be a swing and a miss. But I think there's a high probability that he actually does, so I like Jacobs here. Interesting to see what the usage is like of Jacobs, White, and Amir Abdullah. For the Chargers, I know it's a huge shock to you guys. I'm going to play Austin Eckler, right? You drafted him like 4th overall, 3rd overall. You're going to play him up against the Raiders. His usage is going to be off the charts, I should say. He took a dump on the Raiders' chest last year in one of those games. Think he could do it again. Love Eckler up against the Raiders. For the other running backs on the Chargers, they have a couple of guys. Joshua Kelly is listed as the 2 right now. I'm going to be honest, I don't think he's necessarily the 2, but we'll see. Doesn't even fucking matter, though, because I think they just want to keep feeding the rock to Eckler. Next up, we move to the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I have been someone early on in the offseason that was timid on Green Bay Packers running back A.J. Dillon. I was thinking, you know what? I really think Aaron Jones is going to be a huge benefactor of Devontae Adams leaving. I think Aaron Jones could be catching a lot of these passes. And then people have continued to talk up and up and up on A.J. Dillon. So he keeps moving up the board. And then I started realizing, hey, I don't want to be caught looking like a dumbass. Maybe let's think about A.J. Dillon more. Let's think about the fact that what if Dillon does scrape heavily into Jones's usage? What if Dillon really is, this is maybe more of a split than I think, and Dillon is getting closer and closer to Aaron Jones in terms of touches? That is possible. What happens if they use Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon on the field at the exact same fucking time, which is possible? So I'm going to go with Dillon and Aaron Jones up against the Vikings. If it's a gun to my head scenario, Jones or Dillon, I'm going Jones. Easily. I think Jones is the more talented back. I think Jones is better at everything compared to A.J. Dillon. I think Jones is a better goal line back, even though he's not as big as A.J. Dillon. I think he's better at catching passes. I think he's better open in space. We shall see. We shall see. But I still like Dillon. I think you can play him, but I'm way more excited about what Aaron Jones can do to this Vikings defense. For the Vikings, you gotta go with Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is the clear workhorse in Minnesota. You drafted him highly for a reason. Don't overthink things. The Packers defense also isn't the greatest against the run. Alexander Mattison is in a pretty solid spot here if they actually gave him touches. But guess what? They don't fucking give him touches because they think Dalvin Cook's the guy, which makes sense. Dalvin Cook's better than Mattison, so don't play Mattison. If he got opportunity, then maybe he would be start worthy. But this is a Dalvin Cook hierarchy in Minnesota. Next up, we move to the Buccaneers at the Dallas Cowboys for Sunday Night Football. Now, I also thought long and hard about this one. And I think if you have other running backs, I'm benching Zeke this week. Zeke got bent over a fucking table in week 1 last year. If you guys remember that game up against the Buccaneers, I believe it was Thursday Night Football. Zeke looked awful, and that was prior to Zeke basically injuring everything, right? And then Zeke just kept playing. But I think you can start him because, again, this could be a high-scoring game, and Zeke could just roll into the end zone. And Zeke could be seeing some dump-offs because besides their number 1 receiver, CeeDee Lamb, they have Jalen Tolbert. Noah Brown's going to be out there. I mean, there's opportunity for Zeke to go crazy here. The Buccaneers' run defense is very good. So as a last-ditch effort, you can start Zeke. But he's far from top 12, top 15, top 18 running backs for me on the week. Leonard Fournette, Uncle Lenny, Big Boy Lenny, up against the Cowboys. Cowboys also have a pretty decent defense, but Leonard Fournette, to me, is the clear lead back on this team. He's the clear bell cow. I know some people are just getting their rocks off to Rachaad White. I don't see it. Like, unless Fournette gets hurt, I really don't see Rachaad White seeing this crazy usage. Fournette's pretty solid at catching passes. I mean, he's not fucking Christian McCaffrey or like Alvin Kamara or Eckler or something, but he's a good pass catcher. Definitely going Fournette this week. I'm going to sit down with Rachaad White again. I just don't see a scenario where unless Fournette gets hurt, knock on wood, we're not rooting for an injury. Unless he goes down, I don't really see White having any usage. Tony Pollard. This motherfucker. Everyone and their mother loves Tony Pollard, except for me. Because I think when Zeke's healthy, Pollard isn't going to be seeing all that much usage. I think you're going to play Pollard. You're going to think, oh, Zeke looked bad week 1 against the Bucs, which I think is possible. Oh, let's play Pollard next week. Pollard shits the bed for you. The team is telling us. Jerry Jones tells us they want to utilize Zeke heavily. Head coach, fat-ass Mike McCarthy, tells us we need to utilize Zeke as a key piece in this roster. So why are people now sucking off Tony Pollard? It makes no sense. Makes no sense. Sit Pollard this week, and if I'm being honest with you, unless you're down bad, you should probably be sitting Zeke as well. Final matchup here, the revenge game, Monday Night Football. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos at Pete Carroll and Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. I saw a report from one of the most noteworthy Buccaneers, Broncos reporter, forgot his name because he has me blocked on Twitter, what a schmuck that guy is, that this split is going to piss off Javonte Williams owners. Now, I've thought this, I've moved on this, I've went so into Melvin, and then I was pivoted back on Melvin, went more into Javonte. I'm still on the standpoint that Melvin Gordon could absolutely skull fuck Javonte Williams on the season. This week against Seattle, this game, they could run up the score. They could, metaphorically, maybe even literally, take a shit on the chest of the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll's going to be on the sideline, chewing gum aggressively while they are getting pounded, okay? I expect the Broncos to run train on the Seahawks. I expect Javonte Williams to score, and I honestly expect Melvin Gordon to score. I think this is going to be a blowout. I do. So I like Denver, both the Denver running backs. I like Penny as well. The Seahawks, Pete Carroll, doesn't give a shit. They could be down by 42, and they're still going to hand the ball to Penny. Kenneth Walker, probably not going to play week 1, would be my best guess. Then what are they going to go, Travis Homer? It's Penny season, baby. It always has been. I love Rashad Penny. I assume you guys drafted already. If you haven't drafted yet, it is Rashad Penny season, baby. So pumped. Even up against the Broncos, I think he's going to get that thing wet. I love Penny this week. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you did end up enjoying it. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It would help us out a ton. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious, FNTSY. Make sure you click on the Underdog sponsorship as well. Make sure you check that out. I love Underdog. I love you guys all so much as well. Make sure you leave any comments down below if you have any questions. I love you guys so much. Have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy!